Avoid the slick patch ambush drone and secure dead mile 0. You crank the wheel hard and gun the throttle. The big rig thunders past the drone corridor without giving either unit a chance to dump its payload on your lane. Both slick patch ambush drones overshoot, banking wide into the blizzard dark, and Dead Mile Zero's entry corridor opens up ahead. Zone's clear, blackout couriers are still out there, but you've denied the ice code and held the lane. Push hard to shattered neon truck stop D and blast anything in the way. Hull Boss hammers the air horn trigger, twin sonic blasts rip down the frozen corridor, catching all 3 blackout couriers in a single shockwave that shreds their light frames and sends them cartwheeling off the on-ramp into the blizzard dark. The 2 slick patch drones are still west and dumping black ice fluid, but you're already punching north up the highway. Distance to the truck stop boneyard is eating up fast. Momentum stacks. 2. Push hard to shattered neon truck stop D and strike anything in the way. Your operator throttles the freight rig hard north up the ice-slick interstate, the 2 slick patch ambush drones trailing at the edge of sensor range bank into intercept vectors, dumping black ice fluid across the lanes. Hull Boss leans on the pneumatic air horn and lets loose a twin shattering blast wave, shredding both drones out of the sky before they can coat the road ahead. Momentum stacks rising, the boneyard lights are closer now, flickering through the whiteout. Push hard to shattered neon truck stop D and incinerate anything in the way. You gun the rig hard north, blizzard hammering the windshield like fists. The shattered neon truck stop blazes into sensor range at 80 meters out. A pair of road rage enforcers on studded road bikes cut across the ice-slicked on-ramp ahead, and a frozen spike layer crawls out from the diner wreckage, its nail-stripped drum already spinning. Air horn is bone dry. You slam the Jake brake siphon into hand, catch the lead enforcer broadside with a deep mechanical resonance burst that kills his engine dead, and your bumper does the rest. 1 down, the spike layer's drum is still turning. Strike road rage enforcer number 2 at 28 meters and keep pressing the objective. You level the Jake brake siphon at the enforcer bearing down at 28 meters, a deep mechanical groan tears through the blizzard and the drain blast hits the road bike's fuel line dead center, stripping momentum and dropping the rider hard onto the ice-slick tarmac. Dead. Frozen spike layer number 1 is still spinning its nail drum at 44 meters. You push forward through the boneyard wreckage toward the objective, keeping mid-range discipline. Strike frozen spike layer number 1 at 38 meters and keep pressing the objective. You level the Jake brake siphon at frozen spike layer number 1. A mid-range drain burst tears into its nail drum chassis at 38 meters, mechanical internals seizing as the resonance bleeds its systems dry. The unit cracks apart in a shower of frozen spikes and shrapnel, lane hazard neutralized. Ice road blocker is still grinding up the fuel lane at bearing 10, keep moving. Strike frozen spike layer number 2 at 48 meters and keep pressing the objective. Jake brake siphon barks hard at 48 meters, a deep mechanical groan tears into frozen spike layer number 2, draining its deployment mechanism mid-cycle before it can salt the lane. The chassis convulses, vomits frozen spikes in every direction harmlessly, and goes dark. Road rage enforcer number 1 and the ice road blocker are closing from the northwest. You're in the thick of it now, Hull Boss. Cut down ice road blocker at 55 meters and keep pressing the objective. You swing the Jake brake siphon onto the ice road blocker at 55 meters. Deep mechanical resonance tears into its snowplow chassis, draining hydraulic pressure and buckling the hull plating. The blocker stutters, loses lane lock, and you push the drain until it seizes cold and dead in the fuel lane. Road Rage Enforcer number 1 is still closing hard at 62 meters, circling through blizzard murk between the jackknifed rigs. Blast Road Rage Enforcer number 1 at 54 meters and keep pressing the objective. Jake brake siphon locks onto Enforcer number 1 at 54 meters. The deep mechanical drone strips the bike's engine cold mid-snarl, sending it into a death wobble that ends against a jackknifed rig in a shower of ice and twisted chrome. Momentum stack climbs to 1. Frozen spike layer number 3 is still seeding the fuel lane ahead. You need to drop it before it lays another row. Cut down frozen spike layer number 3 at 58 meters and keep pressing the objective. You swing the Jake brake siphon onto frozen spike layer number 3 at 58 meters. A perfect mid-range drain shot strips its mechanical systems and cracks the chassis apart before it can lay another nail row. Hull boss momentum is building. Road Rage Enforcer number 2 is still prowling your 9 o'clock and spike layer number 4 sits wide at 355, both ready to contest the fuel lanes. Strike Road Rage Enforcer number 2 at 62 meters and keep pressing the objective. You swing the Jake brake siphon left and unleash a sustained drain burst at Road Rage Enforcer number 2. The deep mechanical hull tears into the armored highwayman at 62 meters, shredding engine reserves and dropping him hard onto the frozen asphalt. Hull boss presses forward, boots crunching over ice-salted blacktop toward the fuel lanes. Frozen spike layer number 4 is still laying strips at your 12, and ice road blocker number 1 is boxing the north corridor. Strike frozen spike layer number 4 at 68 meters and keep pressing the objective. You call the Jake brake siphon's sights onto the frozen spike layer at 68 meters. The deep mechanical growl tears through its nail strip deployment arm, shredding the hydraulic feed and sending the unit into a sparking, skidding halt across the frozen fuel lane. 1 frozen spike layer down. Ice road blocker number 1 grinds forward on the right flank, its double-wide plow scraping black ice, closing range. The fuel lane ahead is cracked open, objective zone holds. Strike through the ice road blocker number 1 pack and hold shattered neon truck stop D. You swing the pneumatic air horn wide and let it rip. A shattering concussive wave rolls across the fuel lanes, cracking ice road blocker number 1's snowplow hull and scattering the Road Rage Enforcers flanking your position at the Neon Diner. The blocker's frame buckles under the resonance, its hydraulic plow arm shearing loose in a shower of black ice spray. 2 frozen spike layers skid in from the collapsed overpass spawn, trailing nail strips across the slick asphalt. They're prioritizing the lane in front of you. Strike frozen spike layer number 1 at 68 meters and keep pressing the objective. You swing the pneumatic air horn on frozen spike layer number 1 at 68 meters, dry click. Mags bone empty. You hot swap to the Jake brake siphon mid-stride and send a deep mechanical groan tearing through the icy dark, draining the spike layer's crawler motors and shredding its spike drum mechanism. It seizes, sparks, and goes dark on the fuel lane. Road Rage Enforcers are still circling, keep moving. Strike Road Rage Enforcer number 1 at 64 meters and keep pressing the objective. Jake brake siphon is dry. You swap to the pneumatic air horn and let a shattering blast wave ripple northwest at 64 meters, catching Road Rage Enforcer number 1 full in the chest. The sound hits like a freight wall and the biker tumbles off his rig, sparks screaming across black ice. Momentum stack ticks up to 1 as the remaining Enforcer and the frozen spike layer hold their positions. The lane's still contested, but you're holding the relay. Cut down frozen spike layer number 2 at 70 meters and keep pressing the objective. Air horn is bone dry. You swap to the Jake brake siphon, dial in on frozen spike layer number 2 at 70 meters, and unleash a grinding mechanical drain burst that strips its deployment mechanism and drops it cold on the ice-slicked asphalt. The fuel lane it was salting is clear. Road Rage Enforcer number 2 and ice road blocker number 1 air still circling the boneyard. Objective pressure is on. Cut down Road Rage Enforcer number 2 at 68 meters and keep pressing the objective. Jake brake siphon is bone dry. You swap to the pneumatic air horn and let a shattering blast wave roll across the frozen fuel lane at Road Rage Enforcer number 2, 68 meters out on a busted road bike. The sound pulse cracks his visor and hammers the bike's fairing. He fish tails on black ice and goes down hard between 2 jackknifed rigs. Ice road blocker number 1 is still grinding south at 84 meters, it's in your sights and the lane's nearly clear. Strike ice road blocker number 1 at 82 meters and keep pressing the objective. Air horn is bone dry, 0 rounds left. You swap to the Jake brake siphon and let that deep mechanical howl reach out 82 meters, draining the ice road blocker's hydraulic systems and cracking its hull plating. The double-wide snowplow shutters, chassis split, and collapses onto the frozen fuel lane in a spray of black ice and diesel slush, lane cleared. 2 road rage enforcers roar in from the collapsed overpass, headlights blazing through the blizzard, and a pair of frozen spike layers are already skidding into position to salt the next lane. Strike frozen spike layer number 1 at 44 meters and keep pressing the objective. Jake brake siphon is bone dry. You slam to the Jake knife and close the 44 meters on frozen spike layer number 1 at a dead freight train sprint, plunging the blade into its deployment chassis before it can lay another row. The hazard unit shudders and sparks out across the iced fuel lane. Road rage enforcers A and B are still wheeling in from your left flank, keep moving. Cut down road rage enforcer A at 28 meters and keep pressing the objective. Jake knife flashes, you close the gap on enforcer A in 2 hard strides, momentum stack at 4 riding the blizzard's howl, and the blade catches the biker mid-turn, shearing through armored leathers and sending the rig spinning into a frost-crusted pump island. Enforcer B wheels hard to flank, carving a wide arc at 42 meters, you hold the knife low and push forward. Frozen spike layer number 2 is still seeding the southern lane, you need range on that one before it lays another row. Cut down road rage enforcer B at 38 meters and keep pressing the objective. You swing wide off the pump island and close the gap on enforcer B. Jake knife side swipe catches the rider mid-arc, shearing through armored leathers and dropping the bike in a spray of black slush. Dead. Now the frozen spike layer number 2 is the last contaminator on the fuel lane, it's still laying strips at 50 meters south, close enough to threaten your route. Avoid the frozen spike layer number 2 and secure shattered neon truck stop D. You call it. Hull boss swings wide of the spike layer's bristling strip field, boots crunching frozen diesel crust as he power strides northeast up the fuel lane and plants himself dead center on the shattered neon forecourt. The relay position is locked, the last contaminated lane is behind him, and the frozen spike layer number 2 sits stranded in his wake, no new strips laid, no approach made. Objective secured without burning around. Push hard to jackknife trailer choked co and cut down anything in the way. Hull boss kicks off from the relay and thunders north through the blizzard dark, Jake knife letting. The frozen spike layer number 2 sits 30 meters south, out of his path, so you leave it frozen and dead in the diesel slick. Light resistance ahead. A lone blackout courier is running cold through the interchange wreckage, no headlights, no chance. Your Jake brake siphon isn't equipped, but the Jake knife side swipe catches its flank as it tries to slip past, chassis crumples, courier down. Distance to the gridlock warden's ground, closing fast. Push hard to jackknife trailer choked co and pummel anything in the way. Hull boss hammers north through the freight corridor, Jake knife already slicked with courier wreckage, the frozen spike layer behind is a non-issue at that range, and the interchange scaffolding fills the windshield at 88 meters out. One last sprint across black ice brings the jackknife trailer wall into contact range. You're almost on the doorstep. Avoid the frozen spike layer number 2 and secure jackknife trailer choked co. You bark the order and Hull boss cuts hard left, threading between jackknife trailers to stay clear of frozen spike layer number 2's nail strip, frozen exhaust and blowing snow swallow the hazard behind him. He rolls into the jackknife trailer choked interchange at full momentum, black ice crunching under heavy boots, and the zone is locked. The gridlock warden and its ice road blocker escorts are already forming a rolling wall across the multi-level wreckage ahead, the boss fight is on. Focus everything on the gridlock warden, trigger maximum overdrive freight, blast it and finish the kill. Hull boss drops the hammer, maximum overdrive freight locks in, 80,000 pounds of cold fury immune to everything the warden can throw. Jake brake siphon screams through 3 deep mechanical rumbles, draining the last of the grapple reserves and leaving the warden's hull cracked and exposed. The pneumatic air horn unloads at point blank, a shattering wall of compressed sound that caves the cruiser's forward armor plating. Momentum stack hits 5 mid-volley, doubling the final blast and punching clean through the engine block. The Gridlock Warden jackknifes across the black ice and detonates in a column of orange fire. Push hard to black ice summit way steady and incinerate anything in the way. Gridlock Warden is scrap, you don't stop. Hull boss hammers through the jackknifed trailer yard, blizzard howling off the interchange wreckage, pushing northeast hard toward the summit way station. A lone frozen spike layer still lurks behind you, but you're already gone. Ice road blockers are dead weight on the asphalt. Pummel frozen spike layer number 2 at 82 meters and keep pressing the objective. Jackknife side swipe is too close quarters for an 82 meters shot. You swing the rig hard and hammer the air horn instead, shattering the frozen spike layer's chassis with a concussive blast before it can seed another nail strip across the summit approach. Spike layer number 2 detonates in a hail of frozen shrapnel. The lane is clear. Deserter convoy Ghost a shadow drafts off your blind side at bearing 15, but you're already closing the final gap to the black ice summit way station. Focus everything on the Widowmaker tanker, trigger maximum overdrive freight, pummel it and finish the kill. Maximum overdrive freight engaged. 80,000 pounds of iron will locks in and hull boss charges the Widowmaker tanker head on through the blizzard. The Jake brake siphon drains its detonation trigger reserves mid-ram, then the Jake knife side swipe severs the payload coupling in a shower of sparks and screaming metal. The tanker jackknifes, chemical payload decoupled and venting harmlessly into the frozen abyss. Widowmaker tanker is down.